Hi everyone, Heather here with PersephoneReturns.com, and I am back with another tutorial video for you about relocation, astrology, and astrocartography. And today we're actually going to be going over the astrocartography map. I'm going to take you through how to load up your own map on astro.com and how to interpret the different planetary alignments in the map. There's going to be a whole bunch of different lines going through there with all these different planetary symbols, and we're going to go over what all of that means, just kind of in general. This really needs to be done taken into the context of the actual birth chart, the placement, the dignity of the planets, the aspects to the planets involved. But we'll get all into that in the third video, the third part of this series, which is going to be about the relocated chart and how to interpret that. But for this video, we're going to be looking at the map. If you haven't seen the first part of this series, please go back and do so. I'll put a link in the description below. We talked all about the timing of a big move and how to see in a chart if somebody's likely to move cross-country, long distance, or to a foreign country. And so before we get into this video, though, I do have an announcement to make. I am going to be doing a super in-depth webinar, way beyond anything that I could possibly do in these short 3 videos, all about relocation astrology, astrocartography. You don't necessarily need to be an astrologer to take this course and to learn from it. You don't actually even need to know astrology at all, although a baseline, knowledge of the chart and placements, or at least what the planets mean, those types of things could be helpful. But I am going to walk you through step by step from the ground up how to look at your own chart, your own astrocartography, to find the best locations for yourself. And if you are not familiar with astrology, you just send me an email prior, at least a few days prior to the webinar, and I will be sure to send you all the information that you're going to need to get the most out of the webinar. But we're going to be going not just into the timing of a move. We'll go even deeper than transits. We're going to go into solar return as well, and how to see it in the solar return chart, and how to verify the move through the solar return chart. We're going to be talking also about timing of major vacations, major travel events. We're also going to be talking about what are the best places for you based on your unique chart to travel to or to move to. Where should you be living to enact the best energy in your life, to feel the best in your home environment? Should you be living in the mountains? Should you be living by the ocean? Should you be living in a big city or in a rural small town area? So we'll cover all of that. We'll go really deep into the astrocartography map, and we're going to go really deep into the relocated chart, how to put it all together. And we're going to do a lot of live readings, live examples, Q&A. I'm going to make sure that you guys can, test it out a little bit if you want to. So I'm going to give opportunities for you guys to test your skills, put it all together, and get real feedback in real time from me. And so it's going to be on September 15th, 1 o'clock Pacific time. That's going to be 4 p.m. Eastern time in the United States. And if you cannot attend live, that's completely okay. But it is going to be offered at a discounted rate for $10 off all the way up until September 15th. And so I'm going to place a link for that in the description of this video below. So it's only $29, and you're going to get a lot of information, all these handouts, PDFs, a lot of stuff going on there. So check that out. But anyway, so we're going to get back to this video and what's going on in the present moment. And so we're going to be talking about the astrocartography map and what this all means. When you pull up the map, you see the map, there's all these different lines going on here, all these different symbols. And so I'm going to share my screen so you can see what it is that I'm even talking about here. So first and foremost, I'm going to show you how to pull this up. So this is Jim Carrey's astrocartography map. This isn't the one that we're going to be using for the demonstration, but I just wanted to show you what this looks like and how to get to it. And so if you go to astro.com, it's just www.astro.com, Astrodienst. Go to free horoscopes and then go to Astro Click Travel. Okay, and it's going to take you to this page right here. In order to get to this and to have your map pulled up, you are going to have to first generate a chart and save it through astro.com. So to do that, you can either click on natal chart, ascendant, or extended chart selection, and then add a new person, and then you type in obviously your date, time, and location for your birth, and then you'll go to Astro Click Travel, and then you'll get something like this pulled up, right? And so, make sure that you do that first. So when you get to AstroClick Travel, you're going to want to click on Scalable Google Map. That's the best one to use. It's the easiest to work with. So you click on that, click Go once you have, the right person selected if you have multiple charts in here, and it's going to show you a map like this. And so what this is essentially a map of where each planet in your chart is highlighted in one of the cardinal placements or positions. And the cardinal placements in your chart are sort of the backbone and structure of your chart. And so that's going to be your ascendant, right? That's going to be your sun, or not your ascendant, your sun. It's going to be your ascendant, your descendant, your midheaven, and your IC. And so it's going to show where each of these planets are highlighted and strengthened by this alignment, right? This specific alignment with these very important points in your chart. And that's going to highlight this energy and make it much stronger. And it's going to make it stronger in a very specific way, right? So if you think about the ascendant, it more has to do with your personality, your persona, the way that you perceive the world, the way that other people perceive you. And so the energy of that planet is going to be highlighted in that context. If you think about the descendant, that's all about relationships, right? It's one-on-one interactions with people. It's romantic relationships. It's business partnerships. It's marriage. And so if you want to find a place where you're going to have really good luck in relationships, you're going to put a planet that's not only a benefic planet, or like at least a nicer planet, but one that's really in good dignity in your chart, one that has good aspects, and you're going to take that and place it on the descendant. So maybe you have Venus, and Venus is exalted in your chart, and it's in this really nice trine with Jupiter, and so you have this really nice Venus placement, and so you want to put Venus on your descendant to highlight relationships in two different ways, right? The descendant is relationships, Venus rules relationships, especially if your Venus is really nicely aspected. If your Venus is not nicely aspected, if it's in like a square with Pluto and a conjunction with Uranus, maybe you don't want to put that on your descendant. That's already enough trouble as it is, right? So maybe you want to put something that is a little bit more nicely aspected, that's going to bring a little bit more good fortune. Maybe you have a nice Jupiter, you put your Jupiter there, right? The best lines to kind of think about are usually the Sun, Venus, Jupiter, sometimes Neptune, depending on what you're going for, sometimes Mercury, as long as you don't mind being busy. But honestly, it just depends on what it is that you're specifically looking for. And so going back to the four corners of the chart, the midheaven represents your career and public reputation. And so if you want to highlight career growth and expansion, maybe put Jupiter up there, put a planet up there that is going to be beneficial to you in some way. And if you want to highlight home, family, if you want to lay down roots, these lines that say IC here, those are the IC, which represents your home, your family, your property, your roots. And so maybe you want to put a good planet there. Maybe you put your sun there because you want to focus on that, because the sun represents your soul's expression of purpose and physical reality. It's your persona. It's what you need in order to feel satisfied, safe, secure, and it's where you're directing a lot of your energy in life. And so putting the sun on the IC is going to highlight this, right? And this doesn't change your birth chart. This is not this is not like you move here and this is now your birth chart. Your birth chart still is predominant. This just shifts the energy of your birth chart in a certain way that can sort of unleash energies and unlock potential that might not be there in your place of living. And it can also help to mitigate detrimental influences that are present in your birth chart, right? It can make them a little bit easier by putting it in different locations. And so that's what we're doing here with these chart formations. And so I'm going to actually use my map as an example for this one, just because I have, personal experience in this map, right? Because it is my life. And so I felt like it would be an easier way to sort of explain what's going on here. I've been to like most of my lines. And so I can give examples of what the energy is like in addition to just, the generic sort of generalized planetary descriptions of this. But so when you click on the map, you're going to see all these lines that are just kind of going through all these different places. Sometimes they intersect, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you'll see a circle here. That's when the planet is at the zenith. It's going to be the strongest where you see this circle. So if you really, really want to get into the energy of your moon on your midheaven for some reason, moon on the midheaven, by the way, guys, your private life is going to be public. Like, it's very hard to keep your private life private when you have moon on the midheaven. And so, if you're trying to write like your memoirs or something, or some sort of autobiography, or like something where, part of your private life is going to be out in the open, then yeah, that's a great place to do it. Or, if your career is in real estate or something involving home, family, property, then that would be something that you could very easily do. But yeah, so anyway, so that's what's going on with these all these different lines. You can see this one's moon midheaven. This is the symbol for the moon. This is the MC is the midheaven. We have Mercury ascendant, Mars descendant, all sorts of different lines going on here. But you'll also notice if you click on the map in different locations that don't have any lines, sometimes you'll get an interpretation. And so I'm going to give an example of this and what this actually is before we get into some of the other. So I used to live in Austin, Texas. And so I have to get closer to get to this because it's kind of exact, because if you see here, I actually have the sun conjunct my south node. So I was born near an eclipse. So I have this pretty much anywhere my sun line is, the nodes are very close. And so in Austin, it's just outside of the node area, but it's just inside of, oops, let's get closer to this. Okay, so as you see here, I clicked on Austin, Texas. There are no lines here at all, but it shows me that my crossing Sun-Jupiter line is here, right? Which doesn't make any sense. It says how the distance is. It's 3,548 kilometers away. So why would that be influencing me? My sun midheaven and my Jupiter descendant lines. Well, that's because of the latitude of the crossing of these two lines is actually in direct alignment with Austin, Texas. And so sometimes you'll click on these lines. There will be an enhanced influence of these planets in this line, but it's not going to necessarily put it on your midheaven and on your descendant, right? It's my sun is not on my midheaven here. My Jupiter is not on my descendant, but the moon and Jupiter were highlighted, and my experience reflected that. I'm not the moon, the sun and Jupiter were highlighted, and my experience reflected that. I had a very awesome time there. My relationships with all of my friends, my family members, were definitely enhanced in that location. A lot of good fortune came to me through relationship. I got married in that location, Jupiter on the descendant, right? And so even though I wasn't on the line, because I was on that latitude, there was that influence. And my career, you know, I had a lot of career growth and development. I had a lot of people in positions of like power and authority in, you know, the area where I was working, or the sort of path that I was on, that were helping me and teaching me and influencing me. That's where I met my teacher, Robert Phoenix, who was a big name astrologer, right? And so he really helped launch my career. And he taught me astrology one-on-one while I was living in that location. So a lot of different things. And it was very fated the way it came about too. It's also close to the latitude of my north and south node lines, which are just below that. And so there's a north and south node influence that's a little bit strengthened there as well. And so a lot of fated occurrences involving, you know, that's career path energy showed up in that location for me. So anyway, so you'll find that there'll be places in the map where that energy will be highlighted. It's not going to be nearly as strong as being on the line though. Like if I'm sitting here, I guess this is in the middle of the ocean, so it's a little bit harder to tell. But if I'm like in Nova Scotia, right, that's going to be a really strong energy of the sun on my midheaven and the south node on my midheaven as well. And so that's going to be a lot of really fated karmic past life connections with people in positions of power and authority. The sun represents people who are in positions of power, leadership, you know, that type of thing. And putting the sun on the midheaven is actually really good for the career, even with the south node there. So that's something that you can sort of look for. But in general, anywhere that you go that you have your sun line, your sun represents that vitality, that life force energy. It's what you need in order to feel satisfied and successful with life. And so the energy of your sun sign is going to come out much more predominantly and much more strongly in the locations where you have a sun line going through there. So you're going to be connecting with the energy of your sun sign, whatever that may be. This is also really good for enhancing your life force, enhancing your vitality, right? Your light shines brighter in these locations. So you can feel more energized. You can feel more uplifted. You can feel like you have that vital life force energy. You feel a deeper sense of purpose, right? Because the sun is your purpose. It's the role you're playing in life. And so if you're trying to figure out what is your role and what's my role? How do I connect with it? A sun line location can help you to do that. And wherever you put the sun in the chart, the light is shining on that area of the chart. And so that's where a lot of your energy is going to be directed. And so if you want to direct your energy toward your career, you're going to want to put your sun near the midheaven or in the 10th house. If you want to direct your energy and have your identity sort of tied up in relationship in this location, if that's your goal, you know, you want to really get into relationship, have these really strong relationships, find yourself through relationship, that would be a sun descendant sort of energy. On the IC, that would be you really connecting your identity to your home, your family, your property, your roots. If you wanted to lay down roots and start a family and focus as much of your energy as possible in that realm, or maybe you have a career that involves property, right? And you want to put your sun there, then you'd put the sun on the IC. And then for the ascendant, right, that's all about you. That's you shining your light, and that's you aligning yourself in terms of the way that you project your energy outwardly with the energy of your sun sign, which represents your more the core of your personality. So essentially what that means is that you're going to be showing up authentically as you are, instead of putting on sort of a mask or a facade, or, you know, acting in a certain way to get love and approval and appreciation from other people. You're just going to be yourself, right? And so that can be very empowering as well. But you're going to kind of be center stage if you have the sun on your ascendant. And so, you know, that's kind of an energy there. When you talk about the moon line, we've kind of started to talk about the moon line. But the moon line, if you think about the moon, it's your intuition, it's your subjective experience. It represents this nurturing energy. It's very comfortable. It's also an energy associated with creativity, with motherhood, with the home, with family. And so wherever you go that you have your moon line, it feels very comfortable. I was recently, you know, in a location where my moon line was when we were traveling. We did a big trip all the way from Arizona all the way around through Colorado. We stayed where my Venus line was. That was awesome. I'm going to tell you guys about my Venus line as well. And then we went up through Washington to where my Mercury and Mars lines were, and down the coast, completely different energy altogether, and then circled back around. And so when you have the moon on your midheaven, or just the moon in general, your moon line going through a location, it feels like a hug. Like, it just feels like you're at home, you're at peace, you're very comfortable. Your focus is more on your internal sort of satisfaction, your internal dialogue, your subjective sense of what's going on. You might find yourself wanting to retreat inward. You might find your intuition heightened or your creativity heightened, where you want to engage in more creative or intuitive sorts of pursuits. You might find yourself coming across as a bit more nurturing, wanting to nurture and to help and take care of other people, especially if it's on your ascendant. You can find that you come into very nurturing, loving, supportive partnerships and connections with other people if you put it on your descendant. On the IC, that's excellent, right? It's at home on the IC. So you, on the IC, if you really want to lay down roots, if you really want to feel at home, if you really want to be connected to your family and to your roots, you know, you put the moon on the IC. When it comes to, let's go kind of in order. Well, I'm going to go to Venus next. So I'm going to make sure that I go through all of these. So we did sun, we did moon. And so when you go to your Venus line is going to be a little bit of a different energy. It's not the same as your moon line. Venus, first off, Venus in the midheaven can make you very popular. It can make you feel much more attractive. Other people might perceive you as being more attractive. It's really good for working one-on-one with people, for partnering up with people in business. Venus on the midheaven is really great for career growth, especially in terms of finance. And so, you know, there are a lot of benefits to having Venus on your midheaven, but Venus line in general, when Venus is enhanced in your chart, things are just going to feel a lot easier, a lot more pleasant, a lot more balanced. You're going to feel like just kind of kicking back, relaxing, and indulging in things that are pleasurable, that are beautiful. You might spend a little bit more money in these locations. This also highlights relationship, right? That's Venus. Venus is the planet that's associated with love and relationships and partnership. And so your relationships take on a greater importance in this location. And the context of that, of course, depends on, you know, where Venus is. And so Venus on the midheaven, like I said, could be you forming really important partnerships with people for business. So if you're looking to form a business partnership with somebody who is maybe in a different country than you or in a different location than you, maybe look for somebody who lives in a location with Venus on your midheaven. That partnership will be beneficial, mutually beneficial. It'll be a very balanced, harmonious contract that you enter into, and a lot of finance, like money can come out of it, right? It can be good for finances. But you know, Venus on your descendant would enhance partnership and marriage, just all close one-on-one relationships. That's like a lot of really relationship oriented energy, right? You know, and things start to flow easier. You come back into balance. Wherever you put Venus is where you're actively working on coming back into balance in one way or another, and things can feel much more peaceful there, much more harmonious. And so when we were in Colorado, I've been there a few times. I love being in there. It's beautiful there. I feel so at peace. I feel so balanced. I don't feel nearly as hectic as I normally do, racing around trying to do all these different things. I have really great connections with the people that I interact with there. It's just overall always a really, really nice experience for me. And so, you know, it's tangible. It's like, it feels like, oh, like I feel relieved, right? I feel like I can enjoy myself because Venus is how we indulge and experience pleasure. So that's kind of what the Venus line is. You can put it on your ascendant. People will think you're more beautiful. Again, that draws relationships right to you, that type of thing. On the IC, a more beautiful and balanced home, living situation, relationships with your family can be enhanced. But that's only, again, if your Venus is nicely aspected. I would not usually recommend highlighting malefic planets like Saturn or Mars unless it's for a very specific purpose, right? So the best way to do it is to look for the benefic or neutral planets and then find the ones that are aspected in the best way that is appropriate for your specific aims and goals. You have to know what it is that you're trying to enhance, right? So if you're trying to enhance your career, don't put the sun and all the planets on your IC. Just because it's a sun line doesn't mean that it's going to be good for your career. Unless your career is in real estate, then you put it on the IC, right? So you got to really be able to piece all of these things together, which we'll go into really deep into the webinar. And then, so the next planet that we'll talk about is going to be, let's talk about what happened. I'm going to do the trajectory of the trip that I went on, and then we'll get to these other planets because I've been to a lot of these ones as well. So let's talk about Mercury. Because Mercury, when you have your Mercury line going through a certain location, it's like chaos. It's like constant phone calls, text messages, emails. It's like you're very, very busy just with communication in general. And so it was very interesting because we actually stayed and drove right through my Mercury line exact. So if you look at this here, so when we were in Washington, we stopped at Olympia and then in Shelton, and then we drove up to Squim, which is up here. So as soon as we hit Shelton, my phone just started going off like craziness. And the entire time we were in Squim, which is really close to my Mercury line here at the northern part of the Olympic Peninsula, which is a beautiful town, by the way. I love Squim. It was like super cute. The people were so nice. There was really great food. It was beautiful. A great place to visit for sure. But it was like I couldn't stop getting, like, it was like text message, phone call, email. It was like my Mercury line was on fire there. It was craziness. And we were very busy, and I was constantly overthinking every single thing that we were doing when we were there too. It was driving, like my brain is already, I'm a Virgo, right? So I have a lot of mercurial energy. That's maybe not something that I want to enhance. It's a little enhanced where I live right now. Maybe so I kind of learned that. I wanted to see what my Mercury line would be like. It was nice. It wasn't bad. My Mercury's not doing anything bad. It's in opposition to Mars though. So my brain is already, going a million miles a minute. And that's why I speak so quickly, because I speak at the rate of my thoughts. And so my thoughts were like racing so much more. I had so many ideas. I was typing notes in my phone and in my journal. So instead of having like this nice relaxing experience being in the rainforest, like in the Olympic National Park and all that, I was just thinking and overthinking, and I was all over the place and wanting to do this and that. And also this was very close to my Mars line and my husband's Mars line, although that was way more enhanced when we got to the coast. And so Mercury is going to enhance communication. It's going to enhance anything that has to do with also driving. We drove a lot around the Mars Mercury line. It's not like we just stayed in one place. We just kept going on little trips everywhere, like maybe an hour this way or like 45 minutes that way. We were just all over the place on the Mercury line too. And so it's really good for communication and enhancing communication. If you do some sort of job where communication is really important, as many people do in this day and age, maybe you're a writer, maybe you're a teacher, especially a grade school teacher, you know, you could put Mercury on your ascendant or your midheaven to highlight it. Maybe you want to enhance communication and have really good conversations, you know, with your friends, with your marriage partner, you know, something along those lines. You could enhance it in that way. Maybe Mercury is the ruler of your 7th house and you want to enhance it for a marriage or something like that, which we'll get into all the subtle nuances of that again later on when we do the webinar. If you do attend, I hope you do. And then the other, so Mercury is going to enhance communication. It's going to make things very busy. Your brain is going to be on fire, but you're going to be having a lot of really great thoughts. Your mind is going to be super, super sharp. Your intellect will be enhanced. And so that's kind of the good side of it. Mars is, again, very busy. It's like you cannot sit still when you're anywhere near your Mars line. And so when Mars is enhanced, and it's going to be enhanced, when you look at these lines, it's not like just on the line. Like Seattle still has a Mercury line influence, right? If you're looking at, so Vancouver Island would be like a strong Mars descendant, but anywhere all the way even to the inner part of this coast right here, that's going to have Mars on the descendant. It's going to be right on the descendant in the relocated chart, and you're going to have Mercury right on the ascendant in this specific circumstance, right? And so Mars on the descendant, luckily my husband and I didn't like have any arguments or anything like that. We were just very busy and we had a lot of intense circumstances that came up. And we also, with these two energies going on and Mars was stationing at the same time, we saw so many car accidents. It was insane. I've never, like, we road trip all the time. I have never run into so many just car accidents. Luckily, we were okay, and you know, we didn't get injured or anything like that. But we were constantly on the go. This was not a restful vacation. It's like we need to go see this, we need to go do that, we need to be all over the place. As opposed to when we were on the Venus line, right, on my Venus line, and this was my husband's Mars line, goes through here too. It goes like right through here. So that's why it was extra busy and chaotic, and we were just very active, hiking and going all over the place. So when we were on the Venus line, it was more like we were kicking back and we were relaxing, and my moon was also enhanced there too. And we stayed with friends. We felt very comfortable, very at home. We even stayed a little bit longer than we initially planned because it was just so restful and so peaceful. And then we came straight from there, or almost straight from there, to Washington, and it was like the exact opposite energy. So that's kind of, so if you have your Mars line there, if you do want to enhance your willpower, your sex drive, something along those lines, and that's, you know, an energy where if your Mars is nicely aspected, you know, you could do that. It wouldn't be dangerous. It would just be, you need to be ready for all of that action and all of that fire. And you can run into a lot of circumstances that can be deeply frustrating. We had a lot of frustrations that did come up along the coast, and we actually ended up cutting our trip a little bit short. The farther we got and the closer we got to like my Mars as we're driving along my Mercury line, the more we were met with frustration and irritation, and we just kind of wanted to get out of there. And so, you know, that's kind of the energy of having Mars, your Mars line there. It's just, you can, and again, we didn't have any arguments. I did have some emails that were kind of aggressive that came to me there, now that I'm thinking about it too, though. So that's kind of the energy of Mars. Pluto, on the other hand, so I have Pluto on my ascendant anyway, but this puts it like right there. Every time I've driven through this area, especially we've driven through Kansas City when we lived in Texas, so many times going from, you know, Austin all the way up to Detroit. And one time we came from Detroit all the way to Colorado down to Arizona. So like we've driven through this area where my Pluto line is. And before I really knew anything about astrocartography, or at least before I was paying close attention to it, every time we would get into this area, Arkansas too was another one, everything would always be super, super intense. And I have another Pluto line, Pluto I think on my midheaven, that goes through London, England, or at least in the UK. So if you look at here, I have London right here. I have Pluto midheaven line near London, and so it's still enhanced there. I also have Neptune on my ascendant. That was like the weirdest experience. being there, and it was super, super, super intense. I had so many intense situations come up, and it was just, there was no escaping it. So I was there for an entire summer, and it was just a lot of intensity that I had to deal with. And in this location, in the United States, Pluto on my ascendant, even though Pluto's already on my ascendant, it's enhanced. And there's this sort of energy when you're on your Pluto line, like when I was in London and when I drive through these places, where you feel this sense of fear that's kind of free floating. It's like a free floating, it's not even an anxiety, it's like this ominous sort of energy where like you feel like something might happen and you're a little on edge about it, but nothing usually ends up happening. That's the energy of having the Pluto line enhanced, and it does bring up intense situations. We stayed at a hotel in Arkansas, near this line, and when we were kind of traveling through, it was, oh my gosh, we didn't get any sleep. It was craziness. It was like haunted or something. It was this old vintage hotel. There were beetles like crawling out of the ceiling. I'm not going to get into the whole story. It was just very intense, and I've had more than one intense experience on this line. So if you want a lot of intensity, and some people like it. I have a friend who loves being, every place that she loves, every place that she wants to live is always has a Pluto line going through there, and she's a very scorpionic sort of Plutonian type person. And so, you know, it works for her, and for some people it might work. So I'm not like saying that nobody should live or visit these lines. Just know that, you know, that's what you're going to be dealing with. A lot of transformative energy. Deep transformation takes place in these locations for sure, especially if you stay there for long enough. Like you're going to be, this is a place of deep healing where you're going to be healing from the inside out, right? That's what Pluto does. It heals you on that deep level of deeply held emotion, deeply held psychological issues, deeply held trauma. It brings it up so you can look at it, so you can look at your stuff, so you can work through it, and so you can release it and let it go. And you feel much lighter and much more empowered because of that process. And so that could be something that you're looking for. This is a great place for some sort of shamanic type of healing. So if that's something that you're into, then, you know, there you go. There's some Pluto energy for you. If you want a lighter time and like an easier time, go to where you have your Jupiter line, especially if your Jupiter is nicely aspected. I found for the most part, even if your Jupiter is not super nicely aspected, the Jupiter line is going to be beneficial to you, at least in a certain way. Sometimes when Jupiter is in an in conjunction though, even though it can feel really good in that area, it can make you a doormat, because when Jupiter is in an in conjunction in your birth chart, there can be a difficulty in saying no to other people. You want to say yes to everything. And so that can be sort of an issue. And so if you want to go to a place where it feels easy, where good fortune, you know, just comes to you, where things just sort of flow into your life, and you want to, and especially if you want to expand on something specific. So like, say, for example, I wanted to expand on my relationship and just make it better, easier, or I wanted to find a new relationship, which is not what I'm obviously trying to do. But if that were the case, you know, Jupiter descendant line would be the place to go. That expands on relationship. It makes relationship come to you a lot more easily. This is also a good place to sort of kick back and relax, because Jupiter can kind of make us lazy sometimes because things just sort of work out. And so you don't have to think about it too much. It's just kind of is, right? And so the Jupiter line can be quite nice for something like that. And like I said, I lived on the latitude of my Jupiter line before, and I had really great relationships there, even not just being right on the line. So you don't have to be right on the line. You can even be in a place where it's enhanced, but you still need to look at what the relocated chart is doing there, because that's going to be the predominant energy, right? So we did Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter. We did Pluto, so we need to do Saturn. Let's find Saturn. So the Saturn line on Astro is going to be brown. I have Saturn close to my Uranus, so it's kind of hard to differentiate. You'd have to be kind of farther to the left of the line if this were the case, in order to enhance the energy of Saturn. If you want to create structure and form in a certain area of your life, if you really want to put in the hard work, to put in the discipline, right, to reach your long-term plans and goals, and you're not afraid of hard work, then, you know, you could do a little bit of Saturn. But Saturn lines, for the most part, feel very heavy and very restrictive, very limiting. It feels like you're sort of stuck in a cage, or, you know, you're trying to push forward with something and it's not quite working. And the area of your life that's touched by Saturn is where your lessons are, but it's also where you have to put in a lot of hard work. So that area feels like much more work. It feels like you're carrying more of a burden and a lot more responsibility in that area of your life. And so Saturn on the ascendant, a lot of burden and responsibility falls on you. You can also feel more isolated maybe in that location. And you might feel like you have to work really hard. You have all these responsibilities. You don't have time for play. You don't have time for nonsense, right? Saturn on the descendant, it can deepen commitment in relationships. So if you really need to either renew your commitment in the relationship or let that, responsibility, that relationship go, like if it's on that brink, right, and you want to just make something happen, go to a Saturn place, because it's going to be like, if that responsibility is too much of a burden and you don't want to carry it moving forward, it'll become really readily apparent. But if you want to renew your commitment and, deepen that, put in the hard work on that relationship, then that's a place where you would be able to do that and it would be enhanced. So that's kind of like the Saturn energy. If you put it on the IC, your home is going to feel like a lot of work. On the midheaven, it can be really good for working really hard toward career goals, but it's going to bring delays, right? Wherever it is, it's going to bring delays. So it will bring delays in career success. So I don't recommend Saturn. Again, you'd have to be going for something really, really specific, and we could, talk all day about this and what that might mean. But let's move on to Uranus. So Uranus. So Uranus is actually an energy that brings change, obviously. It's like that shock and awe kind of thing. When Uranus brings change, though, it does it for a reason. It's a change that stems from some sort of underlying frustration or some sort of internalized sense of rebellion that you're not externalizing, that you're not acting on. And so there's like a frustration. There's something in your life that needs to happen and needs to change, but you don't feel confident in making that change, or you're just too attached to the way things are right now, to the status quo. Uranus is going to shake things up. It's going to bring you excitement. It's going to bring you new beginnings. It's going to bring a lot of surprises and unusual off-the-wall situations that are going to come in your life that can be very, very disruptive. But that disruption is ultimately serving to shake you out of your comfort zones, right? So that way you can move forward with the change that you need to be making anyway. Standing on your Uranus line, though, for too long can make you feel a little bit anxious. It can be a little overly disruptive, and so it's very hard to get your feet on solid ground and to feel a sense of true stability and security when you have a lot of Uranus energy in a relocated sort of chart. And so it just depends on what it is that you're going for, again, and what it is that you're doing. If you are doing something out in the world that's very independent, very innovative, or that uses technology in a certain way where it's a little eccentric, a little out off the beaten path, and you really want to just shoot it out there so everybody can see it, go to a Venus midheaven place for a certain duration of time, right? And that change will come, and it'll be more readily accepted, and it'll enhance that energy for you. But for the most part, Uranus is going to be disruptive. If you want to shake things up, if you need a shaking up out of complacency, if you want some surprises, that's the Uranus energy. I wouldn't recommend it for a place of living unless you're a specific type of person. So Neptune is the last one that we haven't gotten into. And so I've actually been very much where my Neptune line is as well. And so Ireland is one of my favorite places. I visited Dublin while I was, doing the summer abroad in England. And we traveled like all over Ireland, the whole place. It was so at that time I wasn't very like spiritual or anything like that. I didn't have any sort of spiritual practices or any sort of connection, to spirituality or to, sort of otherworldly energies, mysticism, any of that. But if I did, Dublin would have been, like Ireland in general would have been the place, because, oh my goodness, it was like magical. And that's how I describe it even to this day. But when I was first there, I was not into astrology, and I kept describing it to everyone as magical, right? Neptune rules like magic, mysticism. It was just, but also, you have rose-colored glasses where your Neptune line is as well. So you see what you want to see. It feels like a fantasy, and it still feels like a dream when I was there. Like there's this dream-like quality where everything's just like flowy and wonderful and mystical. And, Ireland in general has that vibe, right? Like I think that that's just kind of the vibe that whole area has, just because of the history and the topography and, the ocean being around you, very Neptunian, right? Very misty. So I feel like it's probably a Neptunian place anyway, but it was definitely enhanced by that Neptune line. But when you have Neptune going through a certain area of your chart, you see what you want to see. You're seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. On the Ascendant, it dissolves your personality, your persona, and you come out of that situation usually a different person. It can kind of have you lacking that sense of identity. It's like, who am I really? And I definitely had that experience that entire time that I was in England and Ireland and all of that, where it was like almost like a little bit of an identity crisis. Like everything that I thought that I was not right. Like, and it could have been also me being thrown into, you know, a different country or something like that, or a different situation. But it's a strange energy. I felt very confused about a lot of different things that were going on in my life in that location. And but when the Neptune was enhanced more so than the Pluto, it just felt like, especially when I got down over this way. Actually, we went to Galway. So when we were like further from the Neptune line, actually, but also further from the Pluto line, that's kind of where it felt a little bit nicer. So yeah, so anyway, so Neptune, very mystical, very magical. That's a really good place to go for spiritual development, for creativity. If you're someone who does like creative writing or anything where you have to do like, where you're going into these deep states of creativity where you need to seclude yourself from the world, if you're going on some sort of spiritual retreat, those types of things, they can be really, really great for that Neptunian energy. It's not so good for seeing things realistically, for having your feet on solid ground, for day-to-day normal practical endeavors and activities. Those types of things, you know, are not necessarily favorable under the strong Neptune influence. It's also not good if you have any sort of drinking problem, because it's going to be very difficult to not drink when you have Neptune, you know, enhanced in your chart. And so that's just kind of something to be aware of for those who, you know, that's applicable for. So, you know, usually people are more prone to escapism on the Neptune line. So there's, you know, ups and downs to this. So if you're going there as a place to escape from reality on some sort of spiritual retreat or some sort of journey in that way, then that's a great place for it. But if you're trying to live a normal life, you're going to be way more prone to wanting to escape normal life through drugs, alcohol, fantasy, illusion, delusion, right? Those rose-colored glasses, like only seeing what you want to see, making up what's going on, and it's not actually what's happening in reality. Fantasizing, daydreaming, those types of things. So again, good and bad to everything really, but you know, Neptune can be a little difficult to deal with sometimes. So those are all those lines. The other line that I didn't talk about yet is your north and south node line. And so wherever you have your north and south node line, so that's this little line right here, the little horseshoe thing. So the nodal lines are going to bring circumstances that are very fated, that are very karmic, that there can be a lot of connections that come up there through like past life experiences. And so if you want to go somewhere where you've maybe lived a past life, or you want to meet up with people that you know from previous lifetimes, you know, the node lines would be definitely the place to look for, especially if you have like the south node relocated to your descendant. You're going to be having a lot of past life relationships that are going to come in, usually so that way you can clear up some karma and then let go and release that relationship and move forward into something else, right? That's the nature of the south node. It's about loss, letting go, surrender. And then the north node is more about heading into something. So if you want to find your path in life, if you want to redirect yourself to a new path, a new purpose, go to, you know, where your north node is enhanced, like on your ascendant. Your north and south node will be both enhanced wherever that line is going through, right? Because it's on an axis. But that's a place that very fated, very karmic circumstances can come up to redirect you on a whole new path, a whole new direction. It's deeply transformative, lots of synchronicities, lots of strangeness. And so when you have that sort of energy going on in your chart, in the relocated chart, it's kind of like visiting an eclipse or like living in an eclipse. So it can be turbulent. Some stuff can be deeply just transformative in a way that can be a little bit paradigm shattering for you, but it's also very synchronous. It's the sense that you're being guided. It's a sense that everything that's going on here is sort of fated and synchronistic in some sort of way. And so, yeah, so I hope that you found this helpful. So that's kind of my little spiel about the lines in the astrocartography map. So you can play with that. It's kind of fun to do and just kind of see the correlations between your experiences and just even those planetary lines that go through there, because you're going to get a lot of interesting information out of that. So yeah, so if you have any questions about that, feel free to comment in the comment section below. If you want to book an astrocartography reading, I always am happy to do that. The link is in the description below. And also don't miss my webinar on September 15th, all about astrocartography. We're going to go way deeper, and we're going to make sure that you know how to really figure out the best places to live, to vacation to do business, all of these types of things. And so I hope to see you guys there. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time for part 3. Bye.